Welcome to our deep dive into Sadhguru's thoughts on leadership.
Mm,
You shared his speech on YouTube, and you're especially interested in what he has to say about democracy and, you know, the whole global landscape.
yeah. You've definitely given us a powerful speech to unpack. I mean, Sadhguru, he doesn't shy away from bold statements.
No, he doesn't. So let's start with his views on democracy. He makes this really strong case for respecting election outcomes,
Mm.
even when you might not like the winner.
Right, and what's so interesting here is how he connects that seemingly simple act of respecting election results with the very survival of democracy. Like, he argues that if we start questioning outcomes just because our candidate didn't win, we risk falling back into these
Well,
more primitive systems.
yeah, like he's saying, we could end up back in the days of feudalism.
Hmm.
Power was all about, brute force instead of the will of the people.
Yeah.
He actually uses the phrase bloodletting, which is pretty intense imagery.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it really highlights the potential consequences of disrespecting democratic processes. He's basically saying that the moment we stop upholding the core principles of democracy, we open the door to chaos and possibly even violence.
And that leads perfectly into his thoughts on America's role in the world. It's interesting how he blends humor and seriousness when talking about U.S. influence.
Oh, absolutely. He uses this funny analogy about blue jeans. He says that if someone in America starts wearing a certain style, half the world will follow suit without even knowing why.
It's true. It's such a simple observation, but it really underscores the ripple effect of American culture, right? And he's not just talking about fashion, though. He sees this cultural influence extending to things like lifestyle choices and even the perception of freedom.
Exactly. And that's where his call for responsibility comes in. He contrasts the image some people have of America, a place of excess, maybe free-flowing alcohol or drugs on the street, with his own vision of an America that embodies healthful living and responsible behavior.
He's basically challenging America to be a role model, to live up to the ideals that it projects on the world stage. And this isn't just about looking good, it's about setting an example that others will want to emulate.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, America, the world is watching. What kind of future are you going to inspire? Which is a pretty powerful message, especially considering your interest in global leadership.
For sure. But what I find really fascinating is how he connects this idea of American influence with his prediction that national boundaries are going to become less and less important in the future.
That's where things get really interesting. He compares national borders to fortresses in the age of flight. Think about it. A fortress might seem impenetrable until someone simply flies over it.
So he's saying that in a world increasingly dominated by technology and interconnectedness, these traditional physical borders will lose much of their relevance.
Right, and that has huge implications for how we think about leadership responsibility and even identity. It's like the world is becoming one giant interconnected network, and our old ways of thinking about nations and borders just don't apply anymore.
He even takes it a step further, suggesting that this interconnectedness means we need to shift our focus from competition to collaboration. He says we should be building and developing talent globally, not just trying to attract it to the U.S.
And what's so fascinating here is that he frames this global development as both a moral imperative and a smart business strategy. He even says you don't have to give it away, suggesting that investing in others can actually benefit everyone involved.
It's like he's challenging the traditional zero-sum mentality that says one nation's gain has to be another's loss.
Exactly. He's suggesting a more collaborative approach where we recognize that our fates are intertwined and that working together is ultimately the best way to create a better future for everyone.
He even uses this powerful image of breaking down cyber walls and using our cerebral material to connect with the world. It's like he's saying we need to stop building barriers and start building bridges.
And that leads us to his thoughts on how we engage with the world and each other, specifically his perspective on building a better world, which is a perfect transition into the next part of our deep dive.
Let's take a moment to gather our thoughts and then we'll dive right back in. Okay, so let's get back to Sadhguru. You specifically mentioned being interested in his views on building a better world. It's striking how he links this directly to our actions, especially when it comes to conflict.
Yeah, he really, he doesn't mince words when it comes to war. He points out that even when we enter conflicts with, good intentions, the results are often devastating for everyone involved.
He even brings up World Wars I and II, questioning how sensible human beings could have let such tragedies happen. It makes you wonder, are we really any wiser now?
It's a sobering thought, for sure. He seems to be suggesting that our current approaches to global conflict are just fundamentally flawed. Instead of relying on military might, he proposes a more radical shift in thinking.
Yeah, he actually says we can go build across the world and make a business out of it too. Not all of it is charity. It's like he's advocating for a global Marshall Plan, but one driven by collaboration and mutual benefit rather than pure altruism.
That's a really interesting way to put it. He seems to be saying that investing in the well-being and development of other nations isn't just the right thing to do ethically, it's also the smart thing to do economically.
And this ties back to his idea of national borders becoming less relevant.
Uh,
If we're all interconnected, then investing in the success of others ultimately benefits us as well.
Right. He's really pushing for a paradigm shift, moving away from this us versus them mentality that has dominated international relations for centuries.
He even goes so far as to suggest that America should focus on developing talent globally rather than just trying to attract it to the U.S. He says if everybody with the best talents wants to come to the United States, we can still continue that. We can go there and develop the talent.
Yeah, it's almost like he's turning the traditional immigration narrative on its head. Instead of seeing a brain drain from other countries as a win for America, he's suggesting that investing in those countries and nurturing talent where it is would benefit everyone in the long run.
It's definitely a different way of thinking about global development, and it aligns with his overall message of collaboration and shared responsibility.
He seems to believe that true global leadership isn't about dominating others. It's about empowering others. And that's a really refreshing perspective, especially in today's world.
But empowering others also requires thoughtful engagement, right?
Mhm.
And that brings us back to his thoughts on democracy and the importance of considered voting.
Absolutely. He's very critical of what he calls tribalism in politics, where people blindly follow party lines without truly understanding the issues or considering different perspectives.
He even calls out news channels for framing everything in terms of Democrat or Republican, saying that people have already decided without consideration.
He's basically saying that this kind of blind allegiance undermines the very foundation of democracy.
So how does he propose we move beyond this tribalism? How do we encourage people to engage more thoughtfully with the political process?
Well, he contrasts what he calls a committed vote with a considered vote. A committed vote is based on loyalty, often blind loyalty, to a particular party or ideology. But a considered vote that's about taking the time to understand the issues, weighing different perspectives, and making a choice that you believe is truly in the best interest of everyone.
It's like he's saying we need to be more critical thinkers, not just passive consumers of political rhetoric. We need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions and engage with ideas that might make us uncomfortable.
And that's a tough challenge in today's world, where we're bombarded with information from all sides. It's easy to get caught up in the echo chambers of social media and news outlets that reinforce our existing beliefs.
He doesn't offer any easy solutions, but he does provide a framework for thinking about these challenges. He's urging us to be more mindful, more deliberate in how we consume information and engage with the world around us.
He's calling for a more conscious approach to citizenship, one that's based on critical thinking, open-mindedness, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
He's basically saying that the future of democracy depends on our ability to break free from these old patterns of tribalism and engage with the world in a more nuanced and thoughtful way.
It's a powerful message, and it has major implications not just for how we vote, but for how we live our lives, how we interact with each other, and how we build a better future for ourselves and generations to come.
His insights on global leadership, democracy, and the future are incredibly thought-provoking. What are your key takeaways from this speech, especially in the context of your interest in global leadership?
Yeah, it's amazing how Sadhguru weaves together these big ideas like democracy, global responsibility, even personal growth. It's all connected.
He definitely does. He sees the world as this interconnected web, and he's challenging us to see it that way too, not just in the abstract, but in our everyday actions, you know?
You mentioned being interested in global leadership. What resonates with you most from his perspective?
Well, what really strikes me is his emphasis on building bridges, not walls. You know, it's not about imposing our will on others, but rather collaborating and empowering people around the world. Yeah. He seems to believe that true leadership isn't about dominance, but about fostering connection and understanding.
Exactly. And that resonates deeply with me, you know? It's about recognizing the inherent worth and potential of every individual, regardless of where they come from or what their background is.
He even uses this beautiful phrase, making the world ours, not by conquest, but by love, by inclusion, by embrace.
Yeah, that's the kind of leadership I aspire to.
Yeah.
One that's rooted in compassion, inclusivity, and a genuine desire to create a better world for everyone.
And that brings us back to his point about considered voting. You know, it's not enough to just have good intentions. We need to engage thoughtfully and make informed choices that reflect our values.
Right. He's reminding us that democracy is a participatory process. It requires active engagement, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
It's about taking responsibility for the world we're creating, both through our individual actions and through our collective choices.
He's calling for a more conscious and deliberate approach to citizenship, one that's based on compassion, understanding, and a commitment to building a better future for all.
So as you continue to explore your own path in global leadership, remember Sadhguru's words: embrace collaboration, nurture talent wherever you find it, and always strive to make the world a little bit better, a little bit brighter through your actions.
This deep dive has been a great reminder that leadership isn't about titles or positions. It's about how we choose to show up in the world.
It's about asking ourselves, what kind of impact do I want to have? What kind of world do I want to help create? And then taking action to make that vision a reality.
So thank you for sharing this speech with us. It's been a truly inspiring and thought-provoking exploration of global leadership democracy and the power of human connection.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and perhaps even sparked some new ideas as you continue on your journey.